So thanks to Mark, really. I mean, he did part of the job. Where is he? Is he gone? Oh, good. So it will be almost impossible to summarize 27 contributions to this conference. 2 were missing, so 27 altogether. Am I right, Burcu? Yes. So just broad lines and rather impressions than analysis or synthesis of what really happened during these 2 days. I will start to still summarize, and you will intervene, and we will maybe fight or disagree or agree. Yes, in an Armenian-Turkish way. Why. So
a new Armenian-Turkish way.
So Border International, really. I mean, the border. I took many notes and. Some snapshots, the first and foremost, about the borders and their characteristics. I learned that they are artificial, stately, permanent but permissive, closed but porous. Crossing them is not necessarily a simple physical activity, but also a mental activity, because borders are mainly in the minds of people. You know. Of course, they also exist as we
know very well.
About the very border. My conclusion of what I heard about this very border is that 1915 has created many borders. Not only physical but mental borders. This very border has, of course, changed its borderly function has been transformed in 1989 with the end of the Cold War, and especially in 1993. But before 1989, I understand that through the railway, which was the only way out of the Soviet Union to the so-called free world, this railway was functioning and transporting people and goods until 1962. So this very border has plenty of stories.
The flip side of that, of course, is also that we realized with the report that the Hrant Dink Foundation did that this is still the continuation of the Iron Curtain.
Yes, exactly.
That this was part of the Iron Curtain, and it has continued. And that's something that I think we forget.
Yeah. You know, the 89 actually has created many borders within the Soviet Union, and paradoxically, the border that existed with Turkey, added up to it. I mean,
the one that should have come down.
Exactly. The external border of the Soviet Union everywhere came down, almost everywhere, with exception Turkey, Turkish border. I have noted 3 quotations from the Karspi people, and either reported or directly mentioned. Ankara is farther than Gumri to us. I love it. Kars today is a final destination. We would like to have Kars as a beginning. And thirdly, they are, I don't know who they are, but they are punishing us. The entire region is punished, actually.
I think that it's that part of it, which is something obviously factually obvious, is something that is new from the Armenian perspective, and that is that we think of the big country of Turkey, and we forget that the eastern part by itself is living under different conditions, will respond to different circumstances, and absolutely is affected in ways that we don't often think about. And the part of it that was amazing to me is the self-empowerment that they see with proximity to border, if and when it opens, we'll be the first ones here. We're the ones who are looking out on the other side, and it isn't Ankara. That immediacy is not usually part of our discourse.
Yeah, indeed.
That our partner here really is the Turk of Eastern Turkey.
Yeah. But, one of the characteristics of the borders, I noted, is that they are there to be violated. And, we heard plenty of stories on the fight of the border inhabitants on how to, circumvent or, bypass the existing borders, and how actually to fight the designs of their states, to give them a borderly characteristics. I have noted. I know that you want to.
I'll wait.
The Rahram's words, who talked about borders and boredom. He used an interesting sentence that touched me. He said, states transform these soft and fluid identities, because border identities are soft and fluid, of course, naturally, into hard and straight identities. You are the Turk from Kars, full stop, and there is a border. The guy in front is not only a foreigner, but also an enemy, as bit like Russia's enemies, Turkey's enemies.
Part of this is perception, and it sounds touchy-feely, but I did a full circle in these 48 hours. The very first time that James, poor James, I keep picking on him, the very first time that James said Afghanistan, I thought, Babam, our reality is so different. From that first comment to what James just got through saying now, I started thinking that maybe I just read a line by Nietzsche about you have to forget the past to be able to live in the present.
Yep.
I thought I was the only one that did that, I just put all the bad experiences aside so I can move on with the good ones. That maybe, given the fact that the track 2 that Phil dismissed, I think you should have dismissed because there's no track 1. There's no sense in a track 2 without a track 1. Track 2 is supposed to support something else that's happening, and there isn't. So given that, and given the fact that those of us who've now done this 24/7 for, 30 years or however long we've been able to do it, maybe it really is a matter of rethinking what is possible. In other words, if I was going to yesterday morning say, look, all of this is fine, but we can't take the responsibility off of the governments. At the end of the day, it's the governments who are going to sit and sign that damn piece of paper and let us move on. Now at the end of these 48 hours, I'm thinking,
even more.
Well, I don't want to take that responsibility off of them, but perhaps those of us who keep saying, no, you can't do this, social entrepreneurship in some village near Van, really seriously, what's that going to do to the bigger issue? Maybe that's wrong. Maybe what we need to do is take this accumulated amount of knowledge, self-empowerment, serious commitment, this is serious commitment, and all of the new faces, topics, forces that we've seen. These aren't the usual suspects anymore. It used to be, it was, the 4 guys sitting in that corner over there. It's not just them anymore. The papers, the topics, the involvement, the voluntary involvement. These are people who wrote to the Hrant Dink Foundation and said, hey, I want to come and talk about this.
Yes, but, I think people will continue to sing, sing songs to pass the messages to the other side. I noted the singing, activity to communicate, especially during the Soviet times. I'm afraid,
But to recognize the organizing value
I'm coming there, but the track 1, they are so stuck. We heard, so many accounts on these obstacles, impediments, this impossibility of the stateless solutions. 1, Azerbaijan and Karabakh. What happened? Azeris have become part of the genocide denialism exercise.
And
Turkey has become, part of the Karabakh exercise. Turks don't know where is Karabakh. you know. They mix with Karadağ, you know, which is Montenegro. When you ask a Kurd, where is Karadağ? They have no clue. Mind you, they don't know where is Cyprus either. But,
or Armenia, but that's okay.
So these are extremely important new impediments in addition to the status quo mind that exists since 1915. So these are very serious impediments, and they won't go like this. This is why track 2, as many mentioned here, I think will remain the unique dynamic for the time being, I'm afraid, together with the economy.
But one that's obviously going to need to be taken more seriously, because the singing, well, for example, if before it was singing because we wanted to say we sing the same songs, we're way past that. Now that needs to be turned into organizing of some sort that has some sort of impact. There are resources that we are not multiplying, the resources that we're just becoming aware of. One resource that we need to take into consideration and be aware of that is here in a functional organizational sense and not in any substance sense was the Bolsahai community. The Armenian community of Istanbul was not a topic, was not a subject of this discussion. Certainly here and involved, but the Armenians of Istanbul, the transformation of that community over the last 10, 15, well, certainly the last 7 years, and a little bit more than that. That needs to become a topic of these conversations and considered a force in this transformation. That's really all I have, is a list of things that we need to do from here on, and maybe just in very short sentences.
In terms of the second track?
In terms of what I don't want to call it second track, because for two reasons. The first track is both not moving and also hostage. And second track really, really assumes the responsibility is still there. And it's a very nuanced road for me. I will not in any way remove responsibility from the governments. They have no business being less smart than they should be and less committed to nuanced solutions than they should be.
But we are realists, aren't we?
Well, because we are, then all of the rest of this that before were really isolated, small, touchy-feely feel-goods. You know, Manu came and went and did what he did because it felt good. Now what Manu is doing is adding up. It's multiplying to impact in Gümrü. So recognizing that, I think, is an important step, that there really is more bottom-up power than I was willing to give.
But, you know, take the economy. I mean, I noted this sentence from the Tepavri report. How to proceed economically with a closed border, I underline it, so to create a pressure from the businessmen, of course, and both sides are part of it. They are very active, as you know, to make business with Hayastan, Armenia. So to create pressure for its opening. I mean, of course, TABCD is there since years. They are trying hard, etc. But I mean, it's building up, and it will continue to build up. I mean, we have heard the figures of exports, plus of course, this prospective study by the foundation on the if opened, what might happen to this side of the border on employment and with a comparison with Iraq and Syria. So I think, it's economy is something which should be taken into account, in my opinion, sooner or later, because Turkey, I mean, this is my 2 cents to this conference. Turkey needs to decentralize. It will come sooner or later. It's an over-centralized country. There is no country in the region which is that much centralized in the region and which has that size. So what means decentralization? It also means, the search for the energy that is waiting in Kars and elsewhere, to come up and to start to function. And we are heading there. with or without the governmental will. I mean, they have also this in their program, including the ruling party. So I think we will get there. But so this is the force of the economy and the decentralization, devolution, which will come sooner or later, in my opinion. This is I still could call it, and that will have an impact together with the second track, or what we are doing since 1977. I always take this year. This is the creation of the Belge Publishing House. For me, this is the beginning of the whole story. Ragıp Zarakolu and Ayşenur Zarakolu are the heroes which in the darkest days of this country started to publish books about Armenian genocide. I don't know how many times they were sued, and Ayşenur died. So I always send them, greetings from every conference. So the memory work started here, and of course with Hrant's end after his assassination, it multiplied really. It multiplied. I don't know by how many times, but this is the real track. This is the real, building of energy and synergy, which will sooner or later end up by, having a consequence on the first track. Because, I see it from the way. I mean, let's not forget, this very amphitheater is the core of the Turkish state. You have the founder here and the number 2 Milli Chef there, and we are talking about how to deal with this past. I mean, it's no joke. It's not. This is something which is that Mark mentioned, but many others, that we all have this in mind, and the government has also this in mind, of course.
That ties into something that Phil opened, and it's one of the other things that I want to mention as something that was missing, and that's not a bad thing. It's just an observation, and we need to take it and move on. In perhaps the same way as the economic impact report, and that is the education information process at 3 levels. One is just basic education, context, geography, World War I, history, neighbors, empires, not just the Ottoman Empire having been dismantled, but others as well. General education that's needed on both sides, and a study that demonstrates the impact of that gap on everything else that we're trying to do. The second part of that is specifically genocide-related, Armenia-Turkey relations-related, and working to magnify the effort that is out there. Zaraulu Aras Hranting, Belge Still. And the third one, and I don't even know how to say this or how to do it, but it's the result of something that Fiona Hill said yesterday in conversation, and that is that after a great deal of strife, and that's an understatement, the Queen's visit to Ireland was taken for the important gesture which it was. And my answer was, but for that you need societies that are civil in their understanding of each other and the problems, and are willing to accept that for the gesture that it was. And I don't know how one teaches civility. I don't know how one teaches the basic concepts that make for civil society, for civilization, for civics, for all of the things that finally make for civil polities. But that's missing on both sides. And without that, we're going to wait for, I don't know the descent of whom to solve our problems.
Salpi,
we won't be building on the little ones.
I'm a bit more optimistic than you, I think.
Thank you.
And we are,
Inshallah.
at least in this country, in a maturation journey. Mm-hmm. And the train is gone. I always use the formula of the jinns, which are more common to our region. The genies are out of the bottle, and they will never get back in the bottles, believe me. So I think, have we done? Are we done?
We're done.
We're done.
Can I say one thing about 100 years?
Please.
I think that, again, those who've been engaged in this process, understanding that it's going to take time for Turkey to reach a point where the genie is out of the bottle and all these things can begin to happen. We've realized that it is a different time frame. And so we are understanding of the fact that these 10 years have been very, very different, 7+ years, have been very different from the previous 80, 90. I wonder, however, if in that process of understanding, we are missing out on the opportunity to explain, repeat, reiterate the depth of the actions, the events, and their continuing consequences. And by not doing that, somehow, on the one hand, being receptive and accepting of the gestures, including whatever that note was by Erdogan, which was very valuable. It wasn't what he thought it was, but, you know, I'm glad it was there. Whether we, on the one hand, are being accepting and understanding, and on the other hand, leaving the wrong message that perhaps all of this can improve by small gestures rather than a fundamental step. And I don't want to be responsible for that. I don't want to have made the wrong steps if I could have made the right ones. I'm not sure. I'm just wondering, based on these 2 days.
Let me tell you about the 23rd of April, declaration of Erdogan. I mean, at least in his constituency, he has, he achieved question marks. It's already a lot. And he has a huge constituency, I can tell you. So, last 2 minutes, and can I? Okay, so I will give you some information. This conference has been followed 1,920 times, 70% in Turkish, 20% in English, and 10% in Armenian, watched in the live stream, I mean. And we have even received a message from Lyon, Dr. Nishanyan, who was quite excited about it.
And two former U.S. ambassadors from Washington were watching and asking if there is more than just this. So we've got them too.
Okay. So although some have left, please, an important note to our contributors, to those who presented papers. The deadline for the hard copies is the 15th of February. Please take due note of it. And also we would like to include the good remarks of the session chairs, if they dare to write in one page, to the sponsors, the host, the Mülkiye, the political science, Faculty of Political Science of the Ankara University, the Crest Foundation, Friedrich Ebert Foundation, Black Sea Trust, the Swiss Embassy in Ankara, and the Danish Foreign Ministry and Danida. I also thank the academic community who went through the 50+ proposals and selected 29 of them. Actually 30. There is another one who didn't make it, Helin Anait. As well as to our interpreters, for whom I would like to have a big applause. Thank you. I think I didn't forget anything. Have a nice Sunday evening, a nice week, and see you to the next Ranting conference next year, inshallah. Yes, Mr. Libaridian.
Does the evening program change for participants?
Oh, that you will be informed about that.
He wants to know now.
Oh, but please inform Mr. Libaridian about the evening program.